The sound of skates cutting through ice, the clash of sticks, and the roar of the crowd all take on a different meaning when Olympic gold is on the line. Throughout history, the Olympic hockey tournament has given us moments that have left even the most seasoned NHL veterans in awe. These are the moments where national pride trumps professional contracts, where teammates become opponents, and where legends are born overnight. The relationship between Olympic hockey and the NHL has always been complicated. Every 4 years, the best players in the world leave behind their NHL teams to represent their countries on the international stage. The stakes couldn't be higher. They're no longer playing for Stanley Cup glory or million-dollar contracts, but for their nations, their heritage, and their place in Olympic history. What makes these Olympic moments so shocking is how they challenge our expectations. NHL superstars who dominate the professional league sometimes falter under the Olympic spotlight. Unknown players emerge as national heroes. Teams that seem unbeatable on paper crumble against inspired underdogs. The Olympic tournament doesn't follow the NHL script, and that's what makes it so compelling. In this countdown, we'll revisit the top 10 Olympic hockey moments that didn't just surprise fans. They sent shockwaves through the NHL itself. From miraculous upsets to golden goals, from shootout heroics to unprecedented achievements, these are the moments that change how we view the game and the players who compete in it. These aren't just great hockey moments, they're the Olympic hockey moments that shock the NHL to its core. So lace up your skates and grab your stick as we count down the 10 most shocking Olympic hockey moments that left the NHL world stunned. Our journey begins in Nagano, Japan, in 1998, when a goaltender nicknamed the Dominator lived up to his name in the most pressure-filled situation imaginable. Number 10, the Czech Republic's golden victory, 1998 Nagano. The 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan marked a historic turning point for international hockey. For the first time ever, the NHL took a break in its regular season schedule, allowing the world's best player to compete for their countries. This decision transformed the Olympic tournament overnight, raising expectations and creating dream matchups that hockey fans had only imagined. Enter Dominik Hasek, the Buffalo Sabres goaltender known throughout the NHL as the Dominator. Already respected as one of the league's elite netminders, Hasek was about to elevate his legend to mythical status. With a Czech Republic team that featured talent but was considered far from the favorites, Hasek carried the hopes of his nation on his shoulders. The moment that truly stunned the hockey world came in the semifinal against Canada. The Canadians boasted a roster overflowing with NHL superstars, Wayne Gretzky, Patrick Roy, Joe Sakic, and many others. On paper, it shouldn't have been close, but hockey isn't played on paper. After regulation and overtime ended in a 1-1 tie, the game moved to a shootout. What followed was goaltending perfection that left NHL fans speechless. Hasek stopped all 5 Canadian shooters, Theo Fleury, Ray Bourque, Joe Nieuwendyk, Eric Lindros, and Brendan Shanahan, elite NHL scorers who suddenly looked helpless against Hasek's unorthodox but brilliant style. The Canadians, heavily favored to win gold, were eliminated without scoring a single shootout goal. The shock continued in the gold medal game against Russia, another team loaded with NHL talent, including Pavel Bure and Sergei Fedorov. Again, Hasek was unbeatable, shutting out the powerful Russian offense as the Czechs claimed a 1-0 victory in the gold medal. Petr Svoboda, a defensive defenseman with the Philadelphia Flyers, scored the unlikely winning goal. The impact of this victory reverberated throughout the NHL. Hasek returned to Buffalo, having achieved something no one thought possible. He had single-handedly outdueled entire teams of NHL All-Stars. His reputation grew from being merely one of the best goalies in the NHL to perhaps the most dominant player in the world at any position. For NHL executives and coaches, the Czech victory was a wake-up call about the global nature of hockey talent. The tournament proved that even teams with fewer NHL players could triumph with the right system, national pride, and an otherworldly performance from a key player. Czech NHL players like Jaromír Jágr and Hasek returned to their NHL teams with heightened status, their gold medal serving as proof that hockey excellence wasn't limited to traditional powerhouses like Canada and the United States. The 1998 Czech Republic Olympic team didn't just win gold, it shattered expectations and changed how the hockey world viewed international competition in the NHL era. Number 9. Canada ends 50-year gold drought, 2002 Salt Lake City. The pressure on Team Canada heading into the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics was unlike anything most NHL players had ever experienced. For a hockey-obsessed nation, 50 years without Olympic gold had become a national heartache. After the devastating shootout loss to Dominik Hasek and the Czechs in 1998, Canada assembled what many call the most talented hockey roster ever seen. A who's who of NHL superstars with one mission: bring gold back to Canada. Led by NHL icons Mario Lemieux, Joe Sakic, and Steve Yzerman, expectations expectations weren't just high, they were suffocating. Executive Director Wayne Gretzky famously declared it was us against the world, creating even more pressure on his NHL stars. The weight of an entire hockey nation rested on their shoulders, a burden far heavier than any Stanley Cup final. The tournament began with another shock, a loss to Sweden followed by a tie against the Czech Republic. Suddenly, the hockey world was witnessing something unthinkable, the elimination of Canada's dream team before the medal round. NHL superstars who routinely dominated league play looked tight, tentative, and overwhelmed by the Olympic spotlight. Canadian newspapers were already preparing obituaries for the team's gold medal hopes. Then came the turnaround that stunned the hockey world. Behind NHL veteran goaltender Martin Brodeur, who replaced Curtis Joseph, Canada found its footing. They defeated Finland, Belarus, and then faced their hockey nemesis, the United States, in a gold medal game on American soil. The final was a showcase of NHL talent on both sides, but with historical stakes that transcended any professional game. The officiating became a storyline itself, with controversial calls that had NHL executives and coaches questioning the international rules. Despite the obstacle, Canada prevailed 5-2 behind goals from NHL stars Paul Kariya, Jarome Iginla, and Joe Sakic. When Sakic scored the game-sealing goal, the celebration began for players who had known nothing but success in the NHL but had yet to experience Olympic glory. The image of Mario Lemieux, one of the NHL's greatest players, finally winning Olympic gold in what would be his final international tournament, brought tears to the eyes of hockey fans across Canada. The victory shocked the NHL in multiple ways. First, it demonstrated how different Olympic hockey was from the NHL game. International rules, larger ice surfaces, and the pressure of representing one's country created challenges that even the best NHL players struggled to overcome. Second, it showed that assembling an all-star team wasn't enough. Chemistry, adaptability, and mental toughness were equally important. When these NHL stars returned to their professional teams, many carried a new perspective. Players like Sakic, Lemieux, and Brodeur had added an achievement to their resumes that had eluded Canadian hockey legends for half a century. They had faced elimination, controversy, and immense pressure, and had overcome it all to shock the hockey world and end Canada's 50-year Olympic gold medal drought in men's hockey. Number 8, Sweden's double goal achievement 2006 Turin. The 2006 Winter Olympics in Turin, Italy, provided the backdrop for one of the most impressive feats in international hockey history, an achievement that stunned the NHL and elevated Swedish players to legendary status. Team Sweden, led by NHL superstar Peter Forsberg, accomplished what no other hockey nation had done before. They captured both Olympic gold and the World Championship gold in the same year, earning the rare double gold distinction. Sweden arrived in Turin with a balanced roster of NHL talent, including Forsberg, Mats Sundin, Henrik Lundqvist, Niklas Lidstrom, and Daniel Alfredsson. While they were considered contenders, they weren't the favorites. That status belonged to Canada with its array of NHL All-Stars. What made Sweden's run so shocking was how they systematically dismantled opponents with style that blended NHL physicality with European finesse. The pivotal moment came in the semifinals against a powerhouse Czech Republic team. In a tightly contested battle, Sweden emerged with a hard-fought victory that sent them to the gold medal game against their Nordic rivals, Finland. This set up one of the most anticipated hockey matchups in Olympic history. Two neighboring countries with a long-standing rivalry, each fielding teams dominated by NHL stars who were teammates in North America but fierce opponents on this day. The gold medal game delivered everything hockey fans could want. After Finland took an early lead, Sweden rallied behind goals from their NHL stars, including the game winner from Lidstrom just 10 seconds into the third period. When the final horn sounded on Sweden's 3-2 victory, they had secured their first Olympic gold medal since 1994. What made this achievement particularly shocking to the NHL world was the unprecedented double gold accomplishment that followed. 3 months later, 9 players from the Olympic squad helped Sweden also capture the IIHF World Championship, defeating a Czech Republic team in the final. No nation had ever held both major international hockey titles simultaneously in the modern era. The impact on the NHL was immediate and lasting. Swedish players returned to their NHL teams with elevated status. Lidstrom, already recognized as one of the NHL's best defensemen, added Olympic hero to his resume. Lundqvist, a rising star with the New York Rangers, was suddenly viewed as one of the world's elite goaltenders. The Swedish contingent in the NHL was no longer seen as merely skilled players, but as champions who had achieved something remarkable. NHL teams began looking more closely at Swedish prospects, recognizing that the country's development system was producing complete players who could perform perform under the most intense pressure. The Swedish model of player development became a topic of discussion in NHL front offices, influencing scouting and drafting strategies for years to come. For Swedish NHL players, the double gold achievement became a source of immense national pride. Players like Henrik Zetterberg, the Sidney twins, and others who would later star in the NHL often cited the 2006 Olympic team as their inspiration. The image of Peter Forsberg, with his Olympic gold medal and Stanley Cup championship, became symbolic of Swedish hockey excellence on both the international and NHL stages. The 2006 double gold Swedes didn't just win 2 tournaments. They shocked the hockey world by proving that a well-structured team with the right blend of NHL talent and national pride could achieve the unprecedented, forever changing how Swedish players were perceived throughout the NHL. Number 7. Team USA Silver Surge, 2010 Vancouver. The 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver set the stage for one of the most unexpected runs in recent Olympic hockey history. Team USA arrived in Canada as afterthoughts, a young squad of NHL players that most experts had pegged to finish no better than 4th or 5th. What followed was a silver medal performance that shocked the hockey world and captivated American sports fans who had largely forgotten about Olympic hockey since the Miracle on Ice. The Americans brought the youngest team in the tournament, filled with NHL players who were either early in their careers or were considered good but not great professionals, while Canada, Russia, and Sweden feature rosters packed with NHL superstars and future Hall of Famers. Team USA was built around work ethic, speed, and exceptional goaltending from the Buffalo Sabres' Ryan Miller. The first shock came in the preliminary round when Team USA defeated Canada 5-3 on Canadian soil. This wasn't supposed to happen. Canada had assembled what many consider the greatest collection of hockey talent ever seen, including Sidney Crosby, Jarome Iginla, and Roberto Luongo. Yet there was Miller, stopping shot after shot as his less heralded teammates capitalized on their opportunities. NHL general managers and coaches watched in astonishment as their American players outperformed their Canadian superstars. The Americans continued their surprising run through the elimination rounds. They dispatched Switzerland and then overwhelmed Finland 6-1 in the semifinals. Suddenly, a team that had been an afterthought was playing for gold, and Miller was being hailed as the best goaltender in the world, not just the best in the NHL. The gold medal game rematch against Canada produced what many consider the greatest hockey game of the modern era. Playing in front of a frenzied Canadian crowd, Team USA trailed late in the third period before Zach Parise, who would later sign one of the largest contracts in NHL history partly because of his Olympic performance, scored with just 24 seconds remaining to force overtime. Although Sidney Crosby's golden goal in overtime would give Canada the victory, the silver medal represented an incredible achievement for Team USA. Miller was named tournament MVP, the first American to earn that honor, and returned to the NHL with a newfound reputation as one of the game's elite goaltenders. The impact on the NHL was significant. American players like Parise, Patrick Kane, and Ryan Kesler returned to their NHL teams with heightened profiles. NHL executives took note of how this collection of young, hungry American players had nearly toppled the Canadian juggernaut. The performance accelerated the growth of American hockey, influencing the next generation of NHL stars who watched as players who looked like them, who grew up in the same development systems, nearly captured Olympic gold. For the NHL itself, the tournament, and particularly the gold medal game, provided a showcase of the sport at its most thrilling. Television ratings for the final set records in both the United States and Canada. The league saw firsthand how international competition could elevate the profile of its players and the game itself. Team USA's silver medal run shocked the NHL by proving that heart, system, and exceptional goaltending could nearly overcome a talent gap that, on paper, seemed insurmountable. Though they fell just short of gold, their unexpected surge to the final game stands as one of the most surprising achievements in modern Olympic hockey history. Number 6. TJ Oshie's Shootout performance, 2014 Sochi. The 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia, provided the backdrop for one of the most remarkable individual performances in Olympic hockey history. In a preliminary round game between the United States and host nation Russia, a relatively unknown NHL player named TJ Oshie would deliver a performance that instantly transformed him into an American sports hero and left the hockey world in disbelief. Oshie, then a solid but unspectacular forward for the St. Louis Blues, wasn't even considered one of the top American NHL players entering the tournament. He had been selected to the team specifically for his shootout prowess, a decision that many questioned when stars with higher scoring totals were left off the roster. What followed would vindicate that controversial selection in the most dramatic way possible. The US-Russia game was already charged with political tension and historical significance, reminiscent of the Cold War matchups of decades past. The game lived up to the hype, featuring NHL stars like Alex Ovechkin, Pavel Datsyuk, and Evgeny Malkin for Russia Russia against an American team led by Patrick Kane, Ryan Suter, and Jonathan Quick. After regulation and overtime ended with the teams tied 2-2, the stage was set for a shootout. What happened next stunned the hockey world. Under international rules, after the first 3 shooters, teams could reuse the same player repeatedly. U.S. coach Dan Bilesman made the bold decision to send Oshi out again and again. Facing Russian goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky, a Vezina Trophy winner in the NHL, Oshi took an unprecedented 6 of the 8 American attempts. The pressure was immense. Each time Oshi skated toward a Russian goal, the weight of an entire nation rested on his shoulders. With remarkable poise, he converted on 4 of his 6 attempts, including the game winner in the 8th round. His variety of moves, backhand, forehand, quick shot, left Bobrovsky guessing and the hockey world amazed. When his final shot found the back of the net, securing a 3-2 victory for the United States, Oshi had accomplished something no NHL player had done before on the Olympic stage. Overnight, Oshi went from being a good NHL player to a household name in America. His Twitter following reportedly grew by over 130,000 in just 4 hours. He appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated. TJ Sochi became his new nickname. When asked about being called a hero, Oshi famously deflected the praise, saying, "The American heroes are wearing camo. That's not me." This humble response only enhanced his sudden celebrity status. The impact on Oshi's NHL career was significant and immediate. His jersey sales skyrocketed. Fans showed up to Blues games with American flags and Oshi Olympic jerseys. His marketability increased exponentially, leading to new endorsement opportunities. When he was later traded to the Washington Capitals, his popularity followed him, and he would go on to help the Capitals win their first Stanley Cup in 2018. For NHL executives, Oshi's performance demonstrated the unique promotional value of Olympic participation. In a matter of minutes, a good but not great NHL player had become one of the most recognizable faces in American hockey. It was a type of star-making moment that couldn't happen in regular NHL play, even in Stanley Cup competition. The image of Oshi repeatedly skating toward a Russian goal with cool determination became one of the defining moments of the Sochi Olympics. His performance shocked the NHL by showing how the Olympic stage could instantly elevate a player's status and create a legacy that would follow him throughout his professional career. Number 5. Olympic athletes from Russia win gold. 2018 Pyeongchang. The 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea, marked a dramatic turning point in a relationship between Olympic hockey and the NHL. For the first time since 1994, the NHL refused to pause its season to allow players to participate in the games. This controversial decision was met with disappointment from players and fans alike, who had grown accustomed to seeing the world's best compete on the Olympic stage. What followed was one of the most unexpected and politically charged hockey tournaments in Olympic history. With NHL players barred from participation, countries scrambled to assemble teams from European leagues, minor North American leagues, and college programs. Amid this chaotic situation, one team emerged with significant advantage: the Olympic athletes from Russia, OAR. Due to the Russian doping scandal, they couldn't compete under their national flag or hear their anthem if they won gold, but they fielded a powerhouse team nonetheless. The Russian team was stacked with former NHL stars and KHL standouts. Players like Pavel Datsyuk and Ilya Kovalchuk, who had left the NHL to return to Russia, suddenly became the most recognizable faces in the tournament. Their presence created an unusual dynamic where former NHL stars were competing against largely unknown players from other countries. Throughout the tournament, the Russian team displayed skill and determination that shocked hockey observers. After an early upset loss to Slovakia, they regrouped and steamrolled through the competition. The semifinals saw them defeat the Czech Republic 3-0, setting up a gold medal showdown with underdog Germany, who had stunned Canada in their semifinal. The gold medal game provided one of the most dramatic finishes in Olympic hockey history. Germany, comprised mostly of players from their domestic league, pushed the favored Russians to the brink. With the score tied late in the game, Germany appeared poised for one of the greatest upsets ever. But with just 55.5 seconds remaining in regulation, Nikita Gusev scored to give Russia the lead. Germany responded with the goalie pulled, tying the game with just 3:16 left to force overtime. In the extra period, Kirill Kaprizov, who would later become an NHL star with the Minnesota Wild, scored the golden goal, giving the Olympic athletes from Russia the gold medal. As they celebrated on the ice, the player defied Olympic protocol by singing the Russian Russian national anthem during the medal ceremony while the Olympic anthem played officially, adding a political dimension to their victory. The impact on the NHL was significant and multifaceted. First, it demonstrated that compelling Olympic hockey could exist without NHL participation, though many still consider the tournament diminished. Second, it created an awkward situation where players like Kovalchuk and Datsuk added Olympic gold to their resumes while active NHL stars were denied the opportunity. This led to public criticism from many NHL players directed at their own league. The tournament also showcased talents who would later make an impact in the NHL. Kaprizov's Golden Goal foreshadowed his emergence as one of the NHL's most exciting young players years later when he finally came to North America. Eeli Tolvanen, Rasmus Dahlin, and other future NHL players got valuable exposure on the Olympic stage. Perhaps most significantly, the Russian victory influenced ongoing discussions about NHL Olympic participation. Players and their unions cited the 2018 tournament as evidence of what was lost when the world's best weren't allowed to compete. The Russian celebration, defiant and political, became a lasting image of an Olympic tournament that shocked the hockey world not just for what happened on the ice, but for what didn't happen, the absence of the world's top league and its stars. Number 4. Finland's first gold medal, 2022 Beijing. The 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing continued without NHL participation, setting the stage for one of the most emotional and long-awaited triumphs in international hockey history. Finland, a nation that had been producing elite hockey talent for decades but had never claimed Olympic gold, finally reached a mountaintop in a run that shocked the hockey world and brought a nation of 5.5 million people to tears of joy. Finland arrived in Beijing with modest expectations from international observers, but with a quiet confidence that had become their trademark. Without NHL stars like Alexander Barkov, Mikko Rantanen, and Sebastian Aho available, they built their roster around veteran players primarily from European leagues, including several former NHL players who had returned to play in their homeland. The team featured familiar names like Valtteri Filppula, Leo Komarov, and Sami Vatanen, players with NHL experience but not superstars by any measure. What made Finland's run to gold so shocking was how they systematically dismantled more heralded opponents. Their path to glory began with a perfect record in the preliminary round, including a statement victory over Sweden in the tournament opener. In the quarterfinals, they eliminated Switzerland, setting up a semi-final showdown with Slovakia, who had stunned the hockey world by eliminating the United States. Finland's 2-0 victory against Slovakia propelled them to the gold medal game against the Russian Olympic Committee team, the defending champions from 2018 who once again feature former NHL stars. Few gave the Finns much chance against the talented Russians, but Finland had been defying expectations throughout the tournament. The gold medal game showcased Finland's disciplined team approach against the individual brilliance of the Russian stars. After falling behind 1-0 in the first period, Finland responded with 2 goals of their own. When the final horn sounded on their 2-1 victory, decades of near misses and heartbreak were erased in an instant. The image of Captain Valtteri Filppula accepting Finland's first Olympic hockey gold medal became an iconic moment in the country's sports history. What made this achievement particularly remarkable was how Finland won through a perfect execution of Finnish hockey, a system built on defensive structure, opportunistic offense, excellent goaltending, and an unrelenting team-first mentality. They allowed just 8 goals in 6 games throughout the entire tournament. The impact of Finland's gold medal reverberated throughout the NHL. Finnish players on NHL rosters celebrated their nation's accomplishment with pride. Stars like Barkov and Rantanen, who had been denied the opportunity to participate, expressed both joy for their countrymen and disappointment at missing the chance to be part of history. For NHL teams with significant Finnish talent, there was a newfound appreciation for the mental toughness and team-first approach that characterized players developed in the Finnish system. Perhaps most significantly, Finland's victory changed their nation's hockey identity. For decades, Finland had been respected as a strong hockey nation that produced elite NHL talent, particularly goaltenders like Tuukka Rask and Pekka Rinne, but they were often seen as a tier below traditional powers like Canada, Russia, and Sweden. Their gold medal performance shattered that perception, establishing Finland as a legitimate hockey superpower capable of winning on the biggest stage, even without their NHL stars. The lasting image of the Finnish players, draped in their nation's blue and white flag, singing their national anthem with tears streaming down their faces, became one of the most powerful moments in recent Olympic history. It represented not just a hockey victory, but a culmination of generations of Finnish hockey development and passion, finally rewarded with a prize that had eluded them for so long. Number 3. Sidney Crosby's Golden Goal, 2010 Vancouver. The 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver created the perfect storm for one of hockey's most iconic moments. With the games on Canadian soil, the pressure on Team Canada was enormous. Hockey isn't just a sport in Canada, it's part of the national identity, and no player carried more of that weight than Sidney Crosby, the face of the NHL and Canadian hockey's golden child. Entering the tournament, Crosby was already a Stanley Cup champion and NHL scoring champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins. At just 22 years old, he had been anointed as a successor to Wayne Gretzky, the next great one to carry Canadian hockey forward. But Olympic gold remained the one major achievement missing from his rapidly growing legacy. The hockey world watched intently to see if Sid the Kid could deliver on the biggest international stage. The tournament started with immense pressure as Canada suffered preliminary round loss to the United States. Criticism began to mount, particularly toward Crosby, who wasn't dominating games as he typically did in the NHL. Questions emerged about whether he could perform under the unique pressure of representing his hockey-mad home country. Canada regrouped and fought their way to the gold medal game, setting up a rematch with the Americans. After taking a 2-0 lead, Canada appeared in control until the United States tied the game with just 24 seconds remaining in regulation. The Canadian fans, who had been celebrating moments earlier, were suddenly stunned into silence. Overtime would decide the gold medal, with the weight of an entire nation now squarely on Team Canada's shoulders. 7 minutes and 40 seconds into overtime, the moment that would forever change Crosby's legacy arrived. After receiving a pass from Jerome McGinley along the boards, Crosby fired a quick shot that slid between American goaltender Ryan Miller's pads. The puck hit the back of the net, and Crosby's famous call of Iggy, Iggy, followed by a celebratory yell, became etched in hockey history. The goal set off a celebration across Canada unlike anything seen before, with an estimated 80% of the country's population watching the game. What made this moment so shocking to the NHL world was its perfect symmetry, the league's biggest star delivering its biggest goal on its biggest stage. It was as if the hockey gods had scripted the perfect ending. Crosby, who had been relatively quiet throughout much of the tournament, delivered when it mattered most, cementing his place not just as an NHL superstar, but as a Canadian national hero. The impact on Crosby's NHL career was profound. Already a Stanley Cup champion, the Golden Goal elevated him to a different stratosphere of hockey greatness. He returned to the Pittsburgh Penguins carrying the aura of Olympic champion, his legacy now intertwined with Canada's hockey mythology. For opponents, facing Crosby was no longer just about facing the NHL's best player. It was about facing an Olympic legend who had proven he could deliver under the most intense pressure imaginable. For the NHL itself, Crosby's goal provided a marketing dream, its most marketable star creating its most marketable moment. Television ratings for the gold medal game shattered records in both the United States and Canada. The league saw firsthand the power of Olympic hockey to transcend the sport and reach casual fans worldwide. The call by Canadian broadcaster Chris Cuthbert, Sidney Crosby, the Golden Goal, became as famous as the goal itself. In the years that followed, countless young Canadian players cited that moment as their inspiration to play hockey. Every NHL arena Crosby visited after those Olympics greeted him differently, with a mixture of respect and awe that only comes from achieving something beyond regular NHL success. The Golden Goal wasn't just a great hockey moment, it was a cultural touchstone that shocked the NHL by showing how the game could unite a nation and elevate a superstar beyond the confines of league play to become a permanent part of Olympic and hockey history. Number 2, NHL Players First Olympic Appearance, 1998 Nagano. The 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan, marked a watershed moment in hockey history, the first time the NHL shut down its season to allow its players to participate in the Olympic Games. For decades, hockey fans had dreamed of seeing the world's best players compete against each other in true best-on-best international competition. In 1998, that dream finally became reality, creating one of the most anticipated hockey tournaments ever played. The decision to allow NHL participation wasn't made lightly. The league's owners are concerned about shutting down for several weeks mid-season, the risk of injury to star players, and the lack of direct financial benefit to their franchises. But the allure of Olympic exposure and growing the game globally ultimately convinced the league to take the plunge. What followed was a tournament that shocked everyone, including the NHL itself, in ways nobody expected. Team USA arrived in Japan with perhaps the greatest collection of American hockey talent ever assembled. Superstars like Brett Hull, Mike Modano, Keith Tkachuk, Brian Leetch, and Chris Kelios formed the core of a team that many consider gold medal favorites. The Dream Team narrative dominated pre-tournament coverage, with parallels drawn to the famous 1992 USA Basketball Olympic team. What happened next stunned the hockey world. Team USA, loaded with NHL stars who were accustomed to playing on smaller North American ice, struggled mightily with the adjustment to international rules and the larger Olympic ice surface. Their difficulties came to a head in a shocking 4-1 loss to Canada in the round robin. Even more disastrous was what followed, an elimination game loss to the Czech Republic, bouncing the Americans from medal contention without even reaching the semifinals. The fallout from Team USA's poor performance was immediate and ugly. Reports emerged of American players trashing their rooms in the Olympic Village after the elimination, causing thousands of dollars in damage. While some players denied these reports, the incident created a public relations nightmare for the NHL and USA Hockey. These NHL stars, used to being treated as celebrities in North America, found themselves being portrayed as ugly Americans on the international stage. Meanwhile, Canada's NHL stars fare no better. Led by Wayne Gretzky, their roster featured future Hall of Famers like Patrick Roy, Ray Bourque, and Joe Sakic. Yet they too were eliminated in the quarterfinals by the Czech Republic and Dominik Hasek's brilliant goaltending. In the bronze medal game, they suffered another devastating loss to Finland, returning home without a medal of any kind. The tournament revealed hard truths about international hockey that shocked NHL executives, coaches, and players alike. Having the most NHL stars didn't guarantee success. European teams, with players more experienced on a larger ice surface and more familiar with international rules, often played more cohesive, tactical hockey. Individual NHL star power couldn't overcome well-executed team systems. Perhaps the most shocking revelation was how different Olympic hockey was from the NHL game. The wider ice surface, different rules regarding body checking, and the intense pressure of representing one's country created a fundamentally different competition that many NHL players struggled to adapt to. Stars who dominated NHL scoring races found themselves frustrated by tight-checking European defenses and unfamiliar tactical approaches. For the NHL, the 1998 Olympics provided valuable lessons that would influence future international competitions. Teams began to select players who could thrive in the international game, not just those with the most impressive NHL statistics. The importance of team chemistry and specific roles became paramount in roster construction. The image of NHL superstars watching the gold medal game from the stands rather than playing in it became a powerful symbol of how Olympic hockey differed from the NHL. The 1998 Nagano Olympics didn't just introduce NHL players to the Olympic stage. It shocked the hockey world by demonstrating that being a great NHL player didn't automatically translate to Olympic success. Number 1. Miracle on Ice, 1980 Lake Placid. The 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, provided a backdrop for what many consider the greatest upset in sports history, not just hockey. The miracle on ice transcended the sport, becoming a cultural touchstone and national moment of pride during the Cold War era. Though it occurred before NHL players were allowed to participate in the Olympics, no discussion of shocking Olympic hockey moments would be complete without acknowledging this legendary game that forever changed hockey in America and influenced generations of future NHL stars. The Soviet Union entered the tournament as overwhelming favorites, having won the gold medal in 5 of the 6 previous Olympics. Their roster featured some of the greatest players in the world, many of whom would later star in the NHL, including legendary goaltender Vladislav Tretiak, defenseman Vyacheslav Fedosov, and forwards Vladimir Krutov and Sergei Makarov. This was essentially the Soviet national team that had dominated international hockey for decades and had routed NHL All-Star teams in exhibition matches. Team USA, by stark contrast, was composed entirely of amateur and collegiate players with an average age of just 21. Coach Herb Brooks had assembled a group of mostly unknown players from college hockey programs across the country. Many NHL executives and scouts dismissed them as too young and inexperienced to compete at the Olympic level. Just 2 weeks before the Olympics began, the Americans had been crushed 10-3 by the same Soviet team in an exhibition game at Madison Square Garden. When the teams met in the medal round on February 22nd, 1980, few gave the Americans any chance. What unfolded over the next 60 minutes would stun the hockey world and become the stuff of legend. Despite being outshot 39-16, the Americans capitalized on their limited opportunities. Goaltender Jim Craig delivered a performance of a lifetime, repeatedly turning away the Soviet offensive onslaught. The pivotal moment came with 10 minutes remaining in the third period. Captain Mike Eruzione, who would never play a game in the NHL, fired a shot past Soviet goalie Vladimir Mishkin to give Team USA a 4-3 lead. As the clock wound down, announcer Al Michaels delivered his famous call, "Do you believe in miracles?" "Yes." The impossible had happened. A group of American college players had defeated the mighty Soviet machine. 2 days later, the Americans defeated Finland to secure the gold medal, completing their miraculous run. The impact on American hockey was immediate and long-lasting. Youth hockey registration across the United States surged as thousands of kids, inspired by what they had witnessed, took up the sport for the first time. NHL teams began scouting American colleges more seriously, recognizing the untapped talent that existed in the U.S. collegiate system. For the NHL, the miracle on ice created a generation of new fans and future players. Many of the league's American stars who emerged in the late 1980s and 1990s, players like Mike Modano, Jeremy Roenick, and Keith Tkachuk, cited watching the 1980 team as their inspiration for playing hockey. The moment helped transform hockey from a regional sport popular primarily in the northern states and Canada to a truly national sport with fans and youth programs across America. Several members of that 1980 team would go on to NHL careers, including Dave Christian, Neil Broughton, and Mark Johnson. Though only a handful made significant impacts at the professional level, their collective Olympic achievement far outweighed any individual NHL success they would experience. The legacy of the miracle on ice continues to influence the NHL today. American players now comprise roughly 25% of the league, up from just 12% in 1980. Nearly every American player in the NHL can trace their hockey lineage in some way back to that watershed moment. NHL teams in non-traditional markets like Dallas, Tampa Bay, and Nashville exist in part because of the nationwide interest in hockey that the 1980 Olympic team helped generate. More than 4 decades later, the miracle on ice remains the standard by which all Olympic hockey upsets are measured. It shocked not just the NHL, but the entire sports world by proving that on any given day, with enough heart, determination, and belief, the impossible could become possible on Olympic ice. Olympic hockey occupies a unique place in the sports landscape. Unlike the Stanley Cup playoffs or regular NHL competition, these tournaments occur only once every 4 years, creating rare moments where national pride trumps professional allegiance. The shocking moments we witness across Olympic history reveal how different this competition is from anything the NHL can offer. What makes these Olympic moments so powerful is how they transcend the sport itself. When Sidney Crosby scored his golden goal, when TJ Oshie outdueled the Russians in the shootout, or when a group of American college players toppled the Soviet Union, these weren't just hockey highlights. They were cultural moments that resonated with millions who might never watch an NHL game. The relationship between the Olympics and the NHL continues to evolve. The league's decisions about player participation create ongoing tension between business interests and the players' desire to represent their countries on a world stage. Yet even in years when NHL stars were absent, the Olympics produced memorable moments that shocked the hockey world, proving that Olympic hockey carries a special magic regardless of who takes the ice. These shocking Olympic moments also reshape how we view NHL players and their legacies. For Dominik Hasek, Olympic gold elevated him from NHL star to international legend. For players like Peter Forsberg and Sidney Crosby, Olympic success added another dimension to their NHL greatness. For others, like TJ Oshie, the Olympic spotlight created a fame that their NHL careers alone might never have achieved. Looking ahead, the future relationship between the Olympics and the NHL remains uncertain. But what is clear is that when the world's best hockey players gather on Olympic ice, whether they're NHL stars or not, they create moments that shock, inspire, and transcend the sport. These are the moments that live forever in hockey lore, the moments that remind us why this game played on a global stage has a power that even the NHL's brightest lights cannot match. From amateur underdogs to professional superstars, from heartbreaking defeats to golden triumphs, these 10 Olympic hockey moments shocked the NHL by showcasing the unique drama that only the Olympic Games can provide. They remind us that no matter how great the NHL game is, there's something special that happens when players lace up their skates not for a paycheck or a Stanley Cup, but for their flag and their country. Those are the moments that shock us, inspire us, and ultimately remind us why we love this game.